What's your European vacation horror story? For me it was a trip to Greece. I let my mother to take full control since she lives in Sweden. I'm traveling from US. It was supposed to be a nice relaxing reunion. My daughter was younger then. We flew to Sweden first and then made the trip to Rhodes. Honestly, when we landed I imagined we would be taken to a place in town, just few minutes away. But sadly, I was mistaken. The taxi kept going, for about 45 minutes. They dropped us off in the middle of some fields next to a structure that looked like it was built in 70s and nothing was improved since. We were handed a key and in the complete darkness we roamed around the property looking for our room. Room is a fancy word because I'd call it a prison cell. I wanted to cry. In the morning, we woke up to see that the pool was completely green. Sea was about an hour trek away. I just couldn't believe we were actually paying money for this. Food was so gross, that rats that run all over that place wouldn't touch it either. On the bright side, I've lost some weight. Mom and I got into a fight and ever since, I'm in full control of planning. I may be spoiled, but vacation is meant to be relaxing. Was in France in 2007. My mum was driving me and my sister to some caves that we were gonna take a guided tour in. We're driving along an empty road and everything seems fine. A few minutes later we see a car coming towards us on the wrong side of the road. We keep moving and wait to see if it moves. It does not. We get to about 100 m away and we realize we're in France, not England, and it's us on the wrong side of the road. I was a kid, about 10. I think the bridge had just been built. My family were going to Copenhagen. We had rented a large van partly because of how many we were and partly so that we could load up a lot of cheap alcohol. So we were touristing on Strædet, which is the main shopping street in Copenhagen, when somehow I fell behind the group and got lost. There were thousands of people on the street that day. I didn't really get scared, oddly enough. I was wandering around on the streets trying to find my family when I encountered a bunch of elephants. Apparently they had some sort of circus or parade strolling through. A clown noticed me as I looked lost and helpless and he bent down and said something in Danish. I nodded without understanding a single word like kids tend to do. Kids either stare, shake their heads or nod. He tried a few different languages and after a while he somehow managed to guess I'm Swedish, so he changed his accent and spoke slower. Var är din mor? Where is your mother? I shook my head and said vet inte, I don't know. So the clown waved over the head clown or whoever, said something in Danish and took my hand and we went off in search of my family. The thing is, a clown attracts attention, even in a crowd of hundreds. After 5 minutes my family found us and yelled at me while simultaneously thanking the clown. So while it wasn't a horror movie for me, it certainly were one for my family. Thank you Nils the clown. I've been really lucky so far. My only nightmare was on the last day of a trip to Barcelona. We went to get some food by the sea and someone stole my friend's bag. The idiot had left her passport in it. We spent ages trying to find this police station to report it, as EasyJet said she could still fly with a police report. All the messing around took us the last day of our trip. We were in Hamburg, Germany. On our last day we went to the parking place where our car was, and driving out of there a van had parked blocking the exit. Looking behind the van was like 8 guys with masks and guns about to do a full-on robbery, so we just floor it and drive around the van. Very weird experience. Paris circa 1997, school trip. We stayed one night in the shoddiest hotel ever, in Pigalle. There were yellowish stains and short curly hairs in literally every bed. One teacher opened her wardrobe to find a full men's suit complete with shoes. One of the lamps in our room was blood splattered. We got lucky and had a separate shower, but some of our friends just had a faucet above the toilet and a hole in the floor. We were excited when we got there because our room was in the 4th floor, the guys was in the 3rd and teachers were staying in the 1st, so we finally could switch rooms at night without sneaking up and risking getting caught, but after seeing some of the shady characters hanging out on the hallways we decided we better have a girls' night in. Edit changed wall to floor. A fake French water hasn't learned to go against the laws of physics yet. Went to Paris for the Japan Expo 10 years ago with my parents and a friend of mine. The last Saturday she had huge pain in her belly, was lightheaded and a few other symptoms. We tried to go to the hospital but the ER was closed. Tried like 4 clinics with E.R.S but all closed too. The only one that was open had the on-duty doctor only arriving in the middle of the afternoon when it was 10 a.m. Receptionist tried to call her until she got a hold of her because my friend was visibly in pain. The doctor made my friend explain what was going on the phone and sent us to another clinic to get some scans and tests. Turns out one of her kidneys had shut down and she needed immediate medical attention. Mugged at knife point in the Netherlands. Pretty self-explanatory. LOL. Had to scale back a lot of activities for the rest of the holiday. Buy travel insurance people. Edit, it happened outside a KFC in Amsterdam, just some random homeless looking dude, could have happened anywhere and it didn't color my opinion on the Netherlands, which is a fantastic country. It's not a horror story and kind of funny looking back, but when my mother and me did a road trip through Scotland we didn't book any places beforehand and just stopped at any B&B that was affordable for the night. Met a lot of interesting people that way. LOL. So we had breakfast with a lovely older lady and her blind dog who kept walking nose first into the legs of our chairs and the dining table. We felt bad for the little guy and tried to keep him away, but the owner insisted that we should just ignore him since otherwise our food would go cold. He wouldn't stop doing that anyway. She kept chatting with us and bringing more food. Meanwhile all you can hear is a repeated soft bonk from under the table and my mom discreetly shuffling her feet across the carpet to try and stop him. LOL. There was also this place completely decorated with roses. Carpet, wallpaper, toilet seat cover. It was just roses everywhere. It was owned by this really nice older man who didn't speak much. He did keep intense eye contact with you through the windows though, just mowed the lawn and watched the guests eating the whole time. So yeah, not a horror story. But definitely some moments that weirded us out. LOL. I have some. One was on my first road trip throughout Europe. Me and a friend were traveling extremely cheap for a number of reasons. We had terrible bank numbers but we needed to get away for a while so badly, so whatever, we camped and slept in the car for most of the trip. We didn't have significant trouble, maybe some homeless people or drunk bums forcing us out or landowners asking us to leave, but all good. Until one night in Romania, near Craiova, we set a tarmac in what seemed to be like a reasonably secluded stretch of woods, and left the car 50 m away. We woke up in the night because we heard some noises, and a random group of people were literally tearing the car apart by smashing it. We shouted and they began to chase us for a bit, then left, but we ran. We fled as we could, slashed tires, reported to the police, and sorted out the papers to scrap my buddy's car. They didn't even stole anything, just damaged the car to a point where it was lost cause. We took buses and hitchhiked back home. I enjoyed Romania a lot, will go back if I can, but I won't set foot on that city ever again. Crazy folks, I tell you. Got into a car accident in Bulgaria. I got rear-ended at a stoplight. Since I didn't speak Bulgarian, and since Bulgarian police are iffy, I get help from the US Embassy. Other than that, I got trapped in Georgia in 08, when the Russians invaded on a business trip. Ended up driving a rental car to the Turkish border under night cover. Walking across the border, taking a bus to Trabzon, then flying back to London. Georgia is wonderful, war not so much. Went with my mum to Paris for the weekend when I was about 18. She put me in charge of planning it, gave me a budget. I booked what I thought was an astronomically expensive hotel. The room was tiny. The whole road was full of prostitutes every afternoon/evening. We didn't really feel safe near the hotel in the dark, although thankfully nothing bad happened. I almost got sexually assaulted in France on a student exchange when I was 13. Two guys were chasing me and my host, 14 at the time, when we were walking home after school. We were students at a Catholic school with strict uniform dress code, so plus 50 to pervert dreams. They were definitely adult men. I don't remember much besides the things they were shouting at us, aka what they would like to do to us, how we ran and how my host called her dad crying and he run out to the street with an old, antique shotgun. Fucking worst experience of my life. Vacation with my grandmother and siblings in Denmark when I was 10 to 11. We had rented a room in a hotel near a beach, and all was nice, good weather, fun bathing etc. Then one day, my grandma gave me some money to buy some candy. I went to a store, got some candy, and it happened. The cashier told me what to pay. 3,500 told or something like that. I froze, and all I could do was say VA. The cashier looked at me angrily and said VA. In a mocking way, followed by some gibberish. I managed to pay somehow, maybe even the right amount. But that was the day I learned that there's something rotten in the state of Denmark, and that it is the Danish language. Not exactly a horror story, but I have never been groped on public transport or anything like that. Went to Paris, got groped twice on the metro. Each time I completely froze, but the second time I thought it wasn't happening for a second or so because it had literally just happened the other day and because it started when he pressed against me like someone could conceivably do on a busy train. Paris was otherwise genuinely full of friendly people, contrary to stereotypes, beautiful, amazing cities, and I stayed in a great hostel, but I never want to go back ever. I accept I could have just been as unlucky in any other city and most women won't have this experience, but I just associate being on the metro with my holiday experience. I love French history and I put a lot of effort into learning French, so it kind of sucks that for me Paris is off the map now. Edit. Thanks for suggestions of places. I have been to other places in France and hope to go elsewhere. In fact, I'm sad thinking about how many places I can't go in my lifetime. I hope to go to Avignon this year, haha, but COVID stopped that. I had a terrible time in Stockholm. I stayed in a hostel and had to share a room with an extremely rude Swedish woman who started yelling at me at 5 a.m. because I asked her not to open the window that was right next to my head. I lost my travel card that I had bought for the week, and the metro workers were super rude when I asked for help. It wasn't a horror story exactly, but the trip had very few redeeming factors, let's say. And I'm not saying that Swedish people are assholes, but I seem to have a knack for finding them. St. Andrews Tourist Hostel in, well, St. Andrews, Scotland. Don't be fooled by nice clean photos on the internet and positive comments. I bet they're ridding them themselves. I am honestly baffled by the comments. This was the most disgusting place I have ever seen. You enter a hostel from the side of an old house. There's a Mexican restaurant or something at the bottom of the house. Then you climb carpeted stairs that are glued together with blue tape. The whole place stinks of food and old. The room we stayed in had one little window that couldn't be closed because it was literally rotting. Bed sheets looked like they were 70 years old and not washed in a while. Beds were old and squeaky. Carpet, that was everywhere, looked disgusting. We had two other roommates. We were all sitting on beds, not wanting to move because everything was so disgusting. It looks like there are some homeless people living there permanently. We went out, came back at 10 p.m., went to sleep with normal clothes on because no one had the guts to even check the shower rooms and we wanted to get the hell out first thing in the morning. We were supposed to stay for 2 nights. I am not overreacting, this was a horrible hostel. At least the location was really good. And the price was very cheap. I guess you get what you pay, but this hostel was rotten and not worth even €0.10.